Afternoon friends, now that 2 days have passed with the ending of the 56th GST Council meeting, all of the traders, manufacturers and service providers would have seen the change in rate in their output services or goods and their impact on the businesses and how they would pass on the benefit to the consumers. Now for all the businesses, manufacturers, traders as well as service providers, it is important to look at their purchase cost, purchase of goods as well as services, and where a benefit can be achieved by them. In this video, we have 6 to 7 pointers and which are only reflective on how you should look at your purchase registers to get the optimum cost for your businesses so that your businesses are more competitive than others in the market. So first, for the manufacturers, there is expected to be a great saving in the cost, the GST cost of coal. As of now, the GST rate on coal is 5% GST with a 400 rupees per metric ton compensation cess, which comes up to around 6 to 7% effective rate. So the GST rate on coal today is 5% GST plus around 6 to 7% compensation cess, which comes up to around 12%. This is increased to 18%. However, this 18% would be GST and input tax credit would be available. In the past, this 6% cost, 7% cost of compensation cess was not available to most of the taxpayers because there was no outward compensation cess. Now this 6 to 7% of compensation cess on coal, that is expected to be a benefit. Therefore, this cost of coal might be re-looked at, the vendors might be engaged with, and it would be seen that how much of cost benefit your companies, which is a manufacturer, can get out of this rate change of GST on coal. Second, packaging items, corrugated, uncorrugated, cartons, drums, boxes, cases. Also certain acids have all come down from around 12 to 18% to 5%. Now in most of the cases, input tax credit is available. Wherever it is available, then even a reduction in the GST rate might not be that much beneficial as ITC is available. However, for those industries like liquor, oil industries, health industries, certain education industries, and all the industries where GST rate on the outward goods or services are exempt, this packaging cases costs and this GST on packaging material becomes a cost. So again, your packaging vendors as well as those which are supplying packaging materials, they need to be engaged with so that the cost benefit is passed on to you. Third, nowadays most of the organization, even MSMEs, may it be manufacturers, traders or service providers, have in-house canteens where you outsource the canteen to a service provider. Now these service providers who are providing restaurant services with in-house canteens in your organizations, their GST rate on their raw materials, by and large all food items, aerated beverages, etc., come down from 12% to 5% or sometimes even nil. Therefore, it is pertinent that in case you are bearing the cost of canteens as a taxpayer, then the vendors may be engaged with for a cost reduction. We all know that the input tax credit on food and beverage items on canteens is not available and it is blocked under section 17(5). Fourth, insurance GST rate on mediclaim and life insurance has reduced from 18% to nil. However, this is only for individuals. It is not for group mediclaim or in life insurance policies. Now for those companies or organizations which are taking mediclaim or life insurance policies for their employees, there is a 18% GST rate and where input tax credit of this 18% is also blocked. Therefore, such organizations might look at renegotiating with their service providers, the insurance companies, as to what would be the differential between in case your employees take the individual policies and in case you as an organization take group policies. In case the difference is around 9 to 10% and in case the impact is large, then it may be seen as an option that employees take their own individual policies and the same is a part of the salary cost and reimbursed as salary by the taxpayers. This might lead to a win-win situation between the employees as well as the organizations. Fifth, transporters GST rate continues to be 5% without input tax credit, but it is increased from 12% with ITC to 18% with ITC. We have been advising all the taxpayers where their output tax is liable to GST to ask the transporters to opt for the second option, that is 12% with ITC. However, now with the increased rate from 12 to 18% of the transporters, for traders or those organizations where the profit margin is very limited, 0.5% to 3% is the profit margin for the traders, this increase in the GST may be leading to accumulation of input tax credit because of the very thin margins. And for traders, specifically transportation cost is a huge cost of doing business. So specifically traders with very thin margins, they might relook at their transportation contracts whether they want to be still in 18% with GST or go with 5% without GST or on RCM at 5%. Sixth, in case you are a government works contractor, your customer is government, department or the government of India or any state government, then your GST rate has increased from 12% to 18%, would be increasing from 22nd of September 2025. And it is important that the rate with the government be renegotiated because generally the government works contract rates are inclusive of GST. So the government needs to be engaged with by these works contractors for invoking the tax escalation clause in case it's there in the agreement. Otherwise 6% would be a huge cost to absorb for the works contractors. And last, in case you are undertaking any construction activities for capitalization in your companies for manufacturers, traders or service providers, where you would not get input tax credit, it may be time to renegotiate the contracts with your builders or developers because their input costs have gone down tremendously or would go down from 22nd of September tremendously. The cement cost, which is around 16 to 20% of the cost of construction, would go down from 28 to 18%. Therefore, a 2% or 1.5 to 2% benefit may be there with the real estate players. Also, the rate of fly ash bricks would go down from 12 to 5%. On the boards, particle boards would go down. So many other inputs and input services for real estate developers might go down. So in case one is a recipient of the services of developers, then might be right to engage with them and to see in case the cost of construction could be optimized as input tax credit may not be available to you in case you are a non-real estate company. So friends, overall these are the select few items which we thought would bring to your notice. Overall, by the purchase departments, by the procurements, the cost of inputs and input services might be relooked at from the GST angle to optimize the cost and ensure that your company remains more competitive than others in the market. Thank you very much for watching. Do like, share and subscribe to this channel. Stay tuned.